for the waning moon in Sagittarius 2025. So what I'm noticing first right off the bat is the last two readings have had, well, the last reading had a bottleneck, a very tight bottleneck between the west and the east, letting the south to the north pass through, but in a very narrow bottleneck. In this print, I see the bottleneck has gotten much wider. There's still a little bit of a bottleneck there, but much wider. And the overall shape, what I'm noticing is sort of like a Yoshi head. Like the north, the blue bulge near the north is sort of Yoshi's nose, and then there's almost sort of a mouth there. The bottom part from the west east just sort of more a blob, but just the Yoshi head I see at the top near the north. The other thing that stands out right away is this triangle shape right sort of in the middle of that bottleneck, and it's right near just behind the entrance of the mouth that I'm seeing on the Yoshi head. I also see a few more triangles. There's one just below that triangle, another one just above and off to the west a little bit. And what I noticed in the last reading was there was 3 dots in a sort of the same area, not the same pattern or shape, but sort of up in that general area. And I talked about how they seemed like they were sort of like words that you're speaking out or were going to speak out about your wishes and desires or whatever it was. And I kind of feel like these are sort of a similar idea, but they're triangles. And I feel like they are like, because that main one is just behind the mouth opening in that blob, the Yoshi head, that they are like right, like they're actively being spoken out, that there's one just behind it and one just ahead of it, and maybe the one just ahead of it was the one that was already spoken out. So they are actively being spoken out at this time. And of course, triangles, there's a whole trifecta thing going on there. There can be past, present, future. There can be Maid and Mother Crone. If you're Christian, there's like, I think it's the Son, the Father, and the Holy Ghost or something like that. There's lots of different Trinity archetypes out there that could fit for this. And then there's all the math and like the sacred geometry that goes along with triangles and whatnot too. The next thing I noticed right off the bat too is in that the wider blob in the bottom, just underneath, or where there's a dip of the bottleneck between west and east, is underneath that in the southern part, is there's these lines, these wispy lines going across the page that remind me of when wind is blowing sand around, like loose dry sand, and the ripples it sort of makes in the sand. That's what these lines are reminding me of wind moving over sand. There's definitely a lot of movement there. There's a lot of activity, but not like, yeah, there's little shapes and whatnot there. So there's like a little bit of clutter, but not like when the other reading where there was a lot of clutter built up around the east, and then there was a lot of clutter built up around the west that was just sort of bubbling up. This seems like that these wind lines are moving things around and clearing things out, and things are sort of getting whipped up in that wind and getting pushed up to the north and out to be into the material realm of the north, the physical realm of the north, instead of just hanging around in this, like the emotions of the west, or the intellect and psyche of the east, or the passions and desires of the south. It's getting externalized, it's getting put out there, and it's in the act of speaking those truths out, or desires or wishes or whatever it is, goals. So it seems like a much more active print. There's a lot of movement in here, and it's not as cluttered. It's like everything's getting pushed around and rearranged, and a lot of movement. We're not ruminating on things anymore. We're not sitting on things anymore. We're just, it's being aired out, so to speak. The other thing too is I realized is the main triangle near the mouth opening, the crystal that was sitting there was an orange crystal that I kind of associate with the creative center, and so that creativity of, I don't know if it's creativity or the act of creating. Something's going on there with that crystal being the main one that draws your attention right to that part of the page, and being right at the mouth opening, ready to go out. And the interesting part of that is it's not the narrow end going out, it's the flat wide end going out first. So it might be a little bit difficult to get out, to choke out, but there's so much strength in that once it does get out. It's going to be a little bit blunt maybe in some cases, but it's definitely going to be a strong force for you yourself if this is resonating with you, and maybe strong to other people around you, whatever this wish, this goal, thought, feeling, whatever it is. I've also noticed that in the southeast corner, if the west north corner is like the nose of Yoshi, then the east south corner sort of seems like a rabbit's butt with a little tiny bump of a cottontail there. So maybe that means you're gonna get a little bit of drive, of motivation, passions, and east. There was a lot there, I think, in one of the earlier prints between the south and the east. The east almost sort of protecting that those passions of the South. Now with all that movement in there and things getting aired out, the South is actually starting to energize the East and creating that movement. The East being your psyche, intellect, conscious thoughts and whatnot, but at the same time whipping up the West, which is your emotions and subconscious and things like that as well. There's just lots of movement of things moving around and seeming to move up to the north and out. So I guess in a roundabout way, sort of your manifestations coming, like it's time for them. It is time to speak them out. It's time to put them out in the material world and see what happens. The time for planning has already passed, or close to passing, and during this time period of the way, you'll be actively engaging in it now, hopefully, if you resonate with it. So for the cards, I'm using the west side of the paper as past influences and the east side of the paper as current influences during this time period. Also using the Halloween Oracle deck and the Messenger Oracle deck. I find that they really complement each other really well. I noticed that on each side there is a winged card, something with wings on it, and each side has something kind of in the ground. So on the past influences, we have the Death card, which says the eternal cycle begins here. And then we also have card 45, which is time to ground. What's interesting with the Death card for me is it's what you would think of a typical Death card, similar ideas to the Death card in tarot, but this one has like a skull shape in it, and the moth goes over top of where the mouth might be. So sometimes I see that as watch your words, or to be quiet and pay attention. Like it's a time to listen more than it is a time to speak, but definitely to watch your words. And also because of the moth, it reminds me of Silence of the Lambs a little bit too. Not super literal in that way, but just a nod to it sometimes. So what the book has to say about the Death card is, do not be afraid if you pull the Death card, as it simply means that something is falling away, or will do so you can begin strongly afresh. There is a great power in this clearing, and you should celebrate new beginnings. And then the blurb for the time to ground is, we all experience moments in our lives when we feel confused, unfocused, and surrounded by chaos and turmoil. These moments are often unavoidable, as are the lessons these moments can impart. But how you respond to them is a choice only you can make. Take a deep breath and a moment to pause and reconnect with the Gaia and nature. Seek the silence of the void within whilst your spirit spirals downward to anchor itself like an ancient tree root in the cleansing embrace of the earth beneath you. So if we're pulling in the other two readings a little bit too, that sort of grounding has been you less in the material world, more in your psyche and your emotion, figuring out who you are now and what you need now based on your own authenticity in this time period, rather than what you thought you want when you're younger or at different stages in your life. And that also leads into the Death card of having a new beginning, or you're at a new beginning if you're resonating with this, or the past influences is that you feel like in the last little while is that you have started a new beginning, or that there was a type of death or change of who you have been in the past versus recently. And it's not a negative thing, it's just like a moth or a butterfly coming out of its chrysalis and a new beginning. The time to ground card really speaks or shows almost a very nurturing time period of when you're in your own space and just healing and connecting with yourself and nature, as opposed to the outside world. It's almost like the, not hibernation, but that dormant period of a seed before it comes out of the ground, which the turtle is kind of I know that there is, I can't place it now, but there is some sort of lore and myth out there about turtles in this context, but I can't think of it all off the top of my head right now. So if you know of some sort of myth out there about turtles in the ground, or turtles being like an inner guide or archetype to connect to oneself, it's almost like the turtle is in that inner void that the card talked about, and the woman's face has her eyes shut with her third eye just sort of half open. So to me that speaks of a very restful time where you're much more focused on your inner world and the spiritual world, and that might speak to figuring out what your authentic self needs and wants in this time and space, in this evolution of yourself, as opposed to what you just going by the status quo of what you already thought you wanted before, when you were wanting different things. For the current influences of the time period, we have eternal love, and it says love is love is love, and it transcends physical death. This card is talking about eternal love. It could be romantic love. It could also be any other type of love. But what it also reminds me of is all those archaeologists that have come across graves where they have two male or two females that are in like an embrace in the grave, or in some sort of intimate way holding hands or something like that, and they all go, oh, they were just really good friends, and you're like, oh yeah, sure, they were just really good friends. Like, same-sex love hasn't existed for eons. Like, it doesn't exist in the animal world either. Like, we haven't had that as part of the human experience since before we were even humans. I'm not saying that's exactly what's going on here, but it always reminds me of those clips that you see every so often about how archaeologists would try to claim that they were just friends. And I mean, it's possible that some of them were just friends, but it's weird that people would lay them in a grave that way. But this card doesn't necessarily. This card could also be just the love that you have for yourself, the love that you have that you connect to that void space in the ground. You could almost sort of superimpose this over top of the other card that we just went over where it's time to ground. That there's a little heart-shaped area below the elbows of the skeleton, and that could almost be that space that the turtle's in. So what that I'll read the little blurb for this too, but right now what I'm getting from that is that maybe that space that we were cultivating in ourselves, we were healing, we were growing, we were gathering our reserves and learning new things and integrating those new things into our psyche. And the print is talking about kind of now speaking those things out into the real world, speaking those things out into the material world. This card maybe shows sharing those things, and almost sort of top half of the heart that is in that space on the around the skeleton's hands, almost sort of like that southern fire passion that we need to embrace and speak out and be authentic with, and now it's time to share that. Also, there's the roots of the tree just above their shoulders, which is reminding me of the World Wide Web. So maybe sharing with other people in that way. Whatever this love is it love for them? Is it love for yourself? Is it love for some new project or some new energy that you're bringing into your life? Maybe it's I think I mentioned a new home at one point in the other ones. I'm not saying that's what it is, but something in your daily life that you have a new love and passion for, and sharing that with other people. Maybe that's what this is talking about. Or maybe there's someone very particular that you want to be sharing these things with. What the little blurb at the bottom of the page for this card for Eternal Love says is, should you choose this card, you are being reminded that love is the most powerful force in the universe. It is more powerful than death itself. Love lingers. It leaves its own legacy, and we should be aware of this every day that we live. For those that are ready for and desiring of a partner, it also indicates that a significant love is close at hand and ready to open up to this new experience. The next card we have is number 2, which is Be Patient, and we got the card number 1 in the last reading in the same position. So now we're at 2, which is Be Patient, and it's this dragon. If I'm not mistaken, the other one was a dragon too. Yep, they're both dragons. The other card 1, was A New Day Dawns, and this one is Be Patient. The blurb for this is, now is not the time to act, which is an exact contradiction to what I'm feeling is right for the sun print. Now is a time to show self-restraint, to be patient and wait. Do not let your desires for an outcome or resolution result in one that is not to your liking because you forced it into manifestation before it was time. Trust that all will be as it is meant to be when it is meant to be. Be still, let go of all frustrations and impatience, and remember that a good thing comes to those who wait. Okay, well, this is still addressing the reading just in a way that seems to not fit with the rest of it, but maybe it kind of does. The waning moon is more than a week, obviously. It's like almost half the month, not quite. So it's a good chunk of time. Maybe if you end up listening to this interpretation in the beginning when I first post it, you still have some time to go before you actively speak it out. Or maybe the last reading talked about having like the right timing. So maybe this, whatever you have to speak out, whatever you have to speak out into the material world and to share with others, maybe there's a proper timing for it to hit right, or for it to be understood and received in love, whether maybe that's with a specific person that you have to wait for the right timing for. Maybe that is multiple people, or maybe it's the right time to put it out in the right context of a conversation or with what's going on in the world, or whatever it is that you feel you need to put out there in order for the message to be received in love and not be put out in a way that seems like you're demanding something of someone else, that you're being condescending in some way or trying to tell other people what to do, and instead you want to share it as this is your expression of yourself. These are your needs and what you want authentically in your life. These are your own thoughts and feelings, and not what you're trying to tell other people how to do or criticize how other people do other things. Not sure if that would be the best way to to see how this might incorporate with all the other cards. It's not saying that all this is not good to happen or is not going to happen. It just means pick the right timing, pick the right context. But it definitely, if we're going off the sun print, it definitely seems like that time to be speaking things out into the material world and to be getting things going in that way and to be sharing with other people is actively come soon-ish. And that's going to be different for everybody. So maybe some people out there, they need to hold back just a little bit more. The bottleneck isn't completely open on there, but it's almost there. That triangle is just behind the mouth opening, but not quite out there yet. And it does have the wider end towards the mouth, so it might be a little bit hard to get out. It might be a little bit blunt to get out, which is why you might have to wait for the right timing and your right opening to present this idea or these feelings or these passions or goals or whatever it is. But it's getting very close. There's definitely a lot of movement and gearing up and getting ready to put this forth into the world and not just have it develop in your psyche like in the turtle in Time to Ground one. In this one with the dragon, the Be Patient one, it's a dragon with wings and the wings are up. The wings are not folded back. They're up. They could be ready to fly at a moment's notice, but they are sitting. So they are waiting for that moment's notice. I think in one of the past two readings, we also had one with the black cat, which is about keeping your eyes open for opportunities and don't let the opportunities pass you by. So that might play into this as well. The most clutter I see on the sun print is right as it's getting near the top of that bottleneck, just below that main triangle. So there's definitely a lot that wants to come out, and then it's almost like it's being pushed up by those wispy lines. For me, it's like an air circulating in that area, and it's being pushed up and raised up with that wind. So it's getting pushed up to that bottleneck, which could be the throat. It's there. It's ready to be spoken into the world. It's actively ready to go. It's just waiting for that right moment. And it might be a little bit hard to get out at first. It might be a little bit blunt, but if you wait for that right moment, hopefully whoever is receiving it, whoever is witnessing it, will receive it and witness it as love, as not controlling or not trying to criticize, not taking it personally in that way, but as the self-expression of your own love for your authentic self and possibly for the love of somebody else, or just love of creation in general and all the good things that do happen in life. There's a lot of bad things that happen for sure, but if we ground ourselves in our own authenticity and acceptance, that is a form of love in of itself. And if we can have that grounding in our acceptance and authenticity of ourselves, light and shadow, then we can have that. We can hold that for other people as well. That doesn't mean to let people walk all over you, but you can hold a little bit of grace for them as well as yourself. So maybe this is about finding that balance of not holding back and saying with authority what you need to say for yourself, whether that be what your needs are, what your boundaries are, what your passions are, what you'd love to create in this world, as well as being mindful of not stepping on other people's toes. That doesn't mean not to do what you want if it might, because no matter what you do, somebody's always going to have a problem with it. But there's no need to be so blunt that you disregard other people if they're going through it. But sometimes you can't avoid that either. But this is indicating that there might be a right time to do it in a loving way, or for it to be received in a loving way. If this resonated with you, please let me know. Leave a comment, leave a like. If it didn't resonate with you, and you saw something else in the sun prints or the cards, there's something else there that resonated with you, it could be a completely different narrative than what I'm trying to interpret from this, then let me know that too. I would love to hear that. I would love to hear other people's interpretations of these sun prints and what other people may or may not be picking up from them. But yeah, I think that's about it for it tonight. I hope that by the end of this waning moon period, you'll have been able to speak out what you needed to speak out to be your true authentic self, your wishes, your goals, and for it to be received in a loving way without people getting butthurt about anything. I hope it all manifests the way that you wanted it to or want it to. And maybe it manifests in ways that you didn't know that you wanted it to. That would be even better. So I think that's about it. Have a good night or day or wherever you're at. Bye.